Britain's news channel.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Angela at 35 minutes past 7.
Let's have a look at the newspapers for you this morning. The Times reports on Rishi Sunak preparing for a battle with the courts over plans to prevent migrants who've reached the UK illegally from appealing against their deportation.
The Mail gives light to Lancashire Police's assessment that Nicola Burley may have fallen into a river after trying to receive her dog's ball.
The Eye draws attention to a hormone replacement medication, the shortage of which is impacting the lives of millions of women across the UK.
And the Telegraph reports on the government's declaration that online misogyny should be banned, as well as Lancashire Police belief that Nicola Burley may have drowned in a river.
And in the Mirror, we're told that the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire celebrity special has been shelved after female stars refused to work with Jeremy Clarkson after those comments he made about Meghan Markle.
And finally, The Star says Psycho Owl is holding us hostage amid a series of attacks, apparently, in the Black Country.
Well, let's go through those papers in a bit more detail with the writer Candice Holdsworth and radio and television, I can't get my words out, broadcasting legend who never fluffs his last dip.
He doesn't fluff at them either.
Easy for you. I'm giving up.
Easy for you to say it.
Yeah.
I'm giving up, Tim. What's the point? I'm surrounded by legends. I'm just going to go home.
Blame it on the hamstring.
Yeah, my dodgy hamstring, you're right. Anyway, look, to serious matters, David. Let's talk about Gary Glitter.
Yes, there's a headline, very strong headline in the Mirror today, which is no shame, no remorse. And there is a great deal of upset about the fact that Gary Glitter has been released halfway through his sentence, which of course is normal practice. Raising the question, I suppose, are sentences long enough? I knew him, I have to say I knew him quite well in the 70s, professionally but not socially, make that point clear. I went to see his Christmas shows. He was a fantastic showman. And it was a tragedy, really, because those shows could have run year after year, decade after decade. And unfortunately, because of his proclivities, he just absolutely wrecked his career. But I have a story that about Gary Glitter, which is quite strange. In 1973, that was his big year, the year that he had all the hit records, and one of them was The Leader of the Gang, which of course was the motorbike song. And that was a record of the week on my Radio 1 show. And at the time, one of the other things I was doing, I was the MC at Reading Speedway, and we used to have a guest star come along with me every week, and very often they'd do a lap with one of the riders. And Gary Glitter, who was obviously commanding a lot of money in those days, said that he would do it for nothing, and he would drive around the track in his Rolls Royce. So it was a huge crowd, as you can imagine, both for the Speedway and for him. And he drove around waving to the crowd, who all booed him.
Really?
Yeah, and this was in the early days, and I was told that it was because it was the only time that season that the team lost, and they saw him as a bad omen. But I wonder now, looking back, if perhaps they knew something that I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
Well,
so I had to take him out for dinner afterwards to make up for I was so embarrassed. You know, he was my guest. He wasn't being paid. And he was booed by the crowd there.
Yeah. Well, he's being booed by our audience as well this morning, because I think now we've been asking for comments about things, and so if I can just interrupt what you think about the papers. Jeff says it's no good moaning about Glitter's release now. The uproar should have been at the start of his sentence. The poor sentences are the problem, and I think you agreed with that.
Well, 16 years is not a short sentence, to be fair.
No.
But no, you do get it. But I think it's the unlicensed business which does significantly impact their lives. Mark says, why is it our sentences are structured to give time off for good behaviour instead of increased sentences for bad? Well, you can be kept in for bad behaviour, can't you? You won't get that parole.
And Jay says, let's be honest, it's not the first time Gary's been jailed for this, and unfortunately I feel it will not be the last.
Well, look, I hope I hope you're wrong on that one for the sake.
Yes, I think we all do.
For the sake of everybody else, let's hope you're wrong.
Yeah.
Candice, let's have a look at the Mail, should we? Free speech.
Yes.
What's going on with free speech?
Yes, so this is in the Daily Mail. This is about the higher education bill, so this is also making its way through Parliament. It was going to be watered down. Conservative peers were opposing some amendments that would only make going to the courts an absolute last resort for people who felt at universities that their free speech rights had been infringed upon. So now they're saying no, people should immediately be able to seek legal compensation if they've been no platformed, whatever. What they're hoping is that this will stop universities from no platforming speakers or having people's appearances cancelled, and that will cultivate a culture of free speech. Of course, it's horrible that we have to legislate for these sorts of things, but as we've seen, unfortunately, at universities anymore, it just isn't a guarantee anymore that you have free speech.
Yeah, it has affected speakers, hasn't it?
It's crazy, isn't it, David? I mean, unless you toe the party line, as it were, then you stand a very good chance of just being...
Or even the party line is not always acceptable, is it?
No.
It really is crazy, isn't it? So many people have been cancelled, and I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it?
I sort of think
something must be done about it.
Well, I sort of think particularly for universities, where you should be challenged, you should be listening to views that you disagree with and are uncomfortable with.
Definitely.
Because that's how you form your arguments against it.
It should be a crucible of open opinion.
We're allowed one view, that's it.
Yes.
We're allowed one view, and if you don't agree with us, then you're out.
Yeah, well, I think that the Sun have got opinions on whether or not Harry and Meghan will be invited to the coronation. They seem to think that
Yes, well, apparently the Sun is convinced that they will be invited, and it does seem to be... the right thing for the king to do, I think, to invite them, perhaps the right thing for them to decline.
Yes.
The alternative is that apparently Harry has had offers to commentate on the event for American television. I mean, serious amounts of money. So when you think about it, he could actually do more harm by doing that than he could by coming here, not being on the balcony, and being, a few pews back.
Well, I think it's absolutely right that they're invited, because it means that the royal family are then above reproach.
Yes.
Yes.
They can't be criticised.
Yeah. But you see, my problem with all of this, I don't know how you feel about it, Candice, is that I think the king is between a rock and a hard place, because he's damned if he doesn't invite them and he's damned if he does. My feeling is that if they do come, instead of the whole ceremony of a coronation, which most people in this country have never seen, unless you're,
It's going to be the Harry and Meghan show.
It's going to be the Harry and Meghan show.
Yeah.
They are whatever happens, they are going to be a three-ring circus, and that's what I find difficult to take, because I think it should be a time where we're looking at our history, at our heritage, and it is a solemn moment in this country's history. I don't know what you feel about that.
That's the problem, because it's becoming all about them. But actually, this is about the country as a whole. Yeah. And I think that's why attitudes are quite hard about the coronation. You can understand why Charles, as a father, would want his son there, and maybe also they're trying to just mitigate any damage by keeping them in the fold rather than outside. But if it becomes about Harry and Meghan, that will be really bad for history, because this is such a historic occasion.
Yeah,
I think we're all still talking about it, but we can't honestly believe this is all happening.
I know.
I mean, the whole thing is just, that's why everybody keeps talking about it. It's just incredible, isn't it? To attack your own family in this way just seems,
It is May the 6th is not just the coronation, it's also Archie's birthday. So that would be a perfectly good reason why Mum and Dad decide to stay at home.
Yes.
Well,
It could.
I think you've got the answer.
It could.
Could well be. Well, we shall see.
I'll drop them a note.
Let's have a look at the eye, Candice, and another HRT shortage. Didn't we already have one of these?
Yes, so this is ongoing. I mean, basically, this story in the Eye covers how there's a new HRT shortage, and it's hitting women across the UK, though not equally. So there are some pharmacies which still do have supplies and some that don't. And women don't necessarily know whether their pharmacy has a shortage. Last year, the outgoing health secretary set up a task force to tackle this problem. But the person that he appointed as the head, she left. So there's just been constant turnover of personnel at the head of this task force. So now we've got the problem again. It's just not being tackled properly.
But what's the delay? What?
Supply chain issues. So this has been going on, I think, across all pharmaceuticals, but it's really hit HRT hard. And so they need to find some way of solving that, because maybe the supply chain issue isn't going to go away, and women are being really severely affected by it.
Sorry, I mean, women will say, oh, supply chain issues. What a lovely excuse for me not getting my HRT. But does that mean that people aren't making it, that they've run out of the ingredients, that it's being made elsewhere and we can't get it into the country?
Exactly.
What exactly does it mean?
Yes, exactly. So this is what women's health experts are saying, that there's just been a total failure of communication. We don't know really what's causing the problems. How are we going to solve it in the future? And this has been going on now for quite a while, since last year.
We're keeping quiet on this one, David. I think.
Yeah, well, I know it is. I know it is a great problem. I know there is a great shortage of HRT, and it's.
And it is devastating for many women who don't just take it because it's the fashionable thing to do. They actually take it because they need it. It is something that changes their lives when they're going through the menopause.
Well, let's cheer things up a little bit, should we, in the sun, and work out what we're going to all play when we pop our clogs. David?
Well, I don't know why you're looking at me when you talk about popping clogs. I'm still here. Just about. What would you have played at your funeral?
I always joked, because I always said I'd be cremated, though that's changed now, but I always said I'd have Burn, Baby Burn, Disco Inferno. But it's, obviously, but I won't.
Here's another one for you, Disco Inferno.
So what's this Pop Your Clogs song, then?
Yeah, these are songs that are played at people's funerals.
Oh, I see.
You can rely on the sun for this. There are the usual ones like, My Way and You'll Never Walk Alone, Over the Rainbow, things like that. But there are one or two that are real surprises. And one here is Meatloaf and Bat Out of Hell.
Oh.
Can you imagine that? Here's another really good one. This is Pink Floyd and Comfortably Numb.
Oh, Comfortably Numb. Oh, that's a thoroughly depressing tune.
Yeah, what about this? This will cheer you up. Don't Fear the Reaper. Flying Without Wings.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah, and Led Zeppelin and Stairway to Heaven.
Oh, well, yes. I actually had a friend who at his funeral, he had Wish Me Luck as You Wave Me Goodbye.
Yes.
And he was carried out on the shoulders of people in the television industry, and the vicar, who every year appeared in pantomime as the pantomime dame, was also in the full vicar's regalia behind the coffin, singing at the top of his voice, Wish Me Luck as You... and in fact, we all did, and it was a lovely way to say goodbye to a wonderful, wonderful man.
That is brilliant.
It was just, he was called John Bartlett. He was a director at Westwood Television, and he was loved by everyone. And honestly, we all stood up in the church and just sort of said, bye, John. And it was a lovely way to do it, actually.
Isn't that where you started out, Westwood Television?
No, I started out at the BBC in the West Country, but
BBC,
but with Westwood afterwards.
Westwood Television, Gus Honeybun.
Absolutely.
Why do I know that name?
Gus Honeybun.
Well, he was
a rabbit, a children's rabbit, and he had big ears.
Yeah.
And he used to give a wiggle if it was a child's birthday, or wiggle his ears, or...
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know why I remember that.
He had a big ears and had a wiggle. Does it
there you go. Oh,
all before your time, Candice.
We're back to the
all before your time.
Can we have a look at this? And I find this really disturbing. Just briefly, Candice, the Telegraph looking at dental deserts.
Yes, so there are rural parts of England covered in the story that basically have no dental cover. People are being given dental appointments that are 1 year away. And these are for people who have serious issues. They need to get their teeth sorted. And I think this is also feeding into this phenomenon that you may have heard of so-called turkey teeth, where people are going abroad to get treatments and they're being botched.
Yeah.
And then they come back here and they need corrective treatment, sometimes corrective surgery, and that's only further adding to the backlog. Yeah. So I think this is an issue that really needs to be addressed, because private dental care is really expensive and some people just cannot afford it.
No,
and it's something we've just gotten used to, I think, people not being able to get dental appointments now.
And horrific stories of people actually pulling out their own desks.
Yes.
Can't find a doctor, can't find a dentist, can't find anybody.
No. Look, we're going to leave it there for the time being, but we shall see you two a little bit later on. Thanks very much indeed.